The following video and audio is of the article Life Forms as Manifestation of Consciousness, written by me. The argument is that artificial intelligence and bioprinting can be used as tools to test the universality of consciousness. Artificial intelligence, which has learned how to assemble biomolecules and or cell-like structures using advanced machine learning algorithms, can instruct a 3D bioprinter with an input of material constituents like nucleotides, amino acids, lipids, and in theory build cell-like machines. Combination of cell-like machines with vasculature can give rise to 3D bioprinted tissue-like systems. The dominant paradigm regarding consciousness in science today is that consciousness emerges from matter. But if then that is the case, the question then arises that why do life forms with greater diversity, such as fishes or animals, manifest greater functional capabilities, which is their evidence for being conscious, in comparison to simpler forms like crystals with identical repeating units? In contrast to the above claim, in the Indian philosophy of the Upanishads, it has been stated that consciousness, primarily awareness, is fundamental and universal. I propose that if awareness, which I defined as including sentience, is fundamental and universal, then it will manifest itself to a greater degree with increasing complexity of artificial intelligence directed 3D bioprinted agents because they express enhanced functional capabilities. The reasoning of the above argument is as follows. If consciousness emerged from matter, then why is there such a major difference in functional properties of materials that possess simple repeating units and those that have greater diversity in the repeating units? Consider, for example, a heteropolymer like DNA, which has 4 basic units. The bases adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, arranged in different combinations like AT, GC, TA, G, triple T, CAGT, and so on and so forth, that can code for proteins like hair proteins, nail proteins, and millions of other proteins that have different functions. However, a homopolymer made of 1 unit like AAAAA or made multiple adenines or TTTTT like multiple thymines does not code for proteins with different functional properties. This shows that it is the variation or heterogeneity that is important for an outcome of a functional property. Uniformity does not lead to such an outcome. Behavioral properties arise from functional properties when proteins with diverse sequence of amino acids interact with each other within a cell in response to stimuli at the cell surface in a process called signal transduction. So it is the interaction between diverse proteins mediated by a specific sequence of amino acids, or alternatively protein motifs via complementary binding, is the key. At the functional and behavioral level, it is the diversity of the interacting components that lead to a response to the stimulus, which is the key property of life. Homogeneity or uniformity is unable to achieve this. Thus, the argument that consciousness emerges from matter fails at this point, since by the above interactions, homogeneous or uniform matter is dead and varied, and heterogeneous matter is alive. How can matter be dead and alive at the same time? In fact, the only argument left for materialists is that consciousness emerges from heterogeneous matter that interact with each other. But then the next question that arises is, what is the boundary between the living and the dead if consciousness emerges from matter? It is like an infinite regress. If consciousness does indeed arise from matter, then it seems to be very specific type of configurations of matter. On the other hand, if consciousness is indeed the fundamental substratum of the universe, it can manifest itself through different degrees in different configurations of matter. In this scenario, even a homopolymer or matter with homogeneity manifests sentience or living properties to an extremely low extent. For example, crystals which have identical repeating subunits are capable of replication, which is a living property. Heteropolymers like DNA manifest the ability to direct the sentience of a cell, as DNA is capable of directing the formation of proteins, which are functional properties. Protein-protein interactions, protein-DNA interactions result in cell behavior that include both metabolism and replication, which are living properties. I would like to propose that the role of artificial intelligence would be to use machine learning algorithms that have learned pattern or motive recognition from naturally occurring biomolecules like DNA and proteins, which are essentially heterogeneous. They would then direct the bioprinting of polymers consisting of these motifs. These biopolymers would interact with each other in various ways. Interactions would lead to phase transition, leading to the creation of self-organized entities with different fluid properties or densities. And through the mechanism of phase transition, AI-directed 3D bioprinted agents acquire more complex structures, functions, and behavioral property. So in the subsequent paragraph, I go on to talk about increasing complexity, which I basically mean diversity or heterogeneity in the repeating units. I conclude this paragraph by saying with increasing complexity of species, interactions between species become more important, giving rise to food chains and food webs. So the final outcome is the prediction of evolution of life forms created by a 3D bioprinting. And the prediction is that 3D bioprinted agents directed by artificial intelligence involving machine learning algorithms will show greater manifestation of consciousness with increasing complexity, and this can only occur if and only if consciousness or awareness is the underlying substratum or underlying field of the universe. With greater manifestation of conscious agents, there will be more interactions of these 3D bioprinted agents, from which will emerge the sculpting of local ecosystems. So the cycle of manifestation and interactions will continue. I end with the following verse from the Upanishads, which was the inspiration behind this article, is Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. The above is translated as all manifest, that is, forms and life forms which are infinite in number, arise from the unmanifest, that is, the underlying conscious field, which is also infinite. When one takes away the infinite manifest from the infinite unmanifest, the infinite still remains.